Damon Core wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned over the half-dismantled engine, sparks flying as metal kissed metal. The scrapyard around him stretched for miles, a maze of twisted ship hulls and broken drones, all coated in the dull gray dust of Viral 9. The wind howled across the metal spires, carrying grit into every joint and crevice. It was a hard world, but Damon thrived on hard worlds. He had a reputation among the few human settlements here, the man who could fix anything no matter how broken. He paused as the faint sound of movement came from the corner of his shop. At first he thought it was rats, maybe a stray scavenger. Then he heard the hiss, a deep, wet hiss, sharp and angry. Damon froze. His gaze darted toward a pile of wreckage where a strange, flickering glow reflected off metal panels. He moved cautiously, heart pounding. What he saw made him catch his breath. Two small dragons lay tangled among scrap metal and broken engines, their scales bleeding faintly, shimmering in colors that shifted as if the light itself was alive. Smoke rose from one of the hatchling's nostrils, and the other whimpered, a sound somewhere between a purr and a cry. Damon's first thought was disbelief. Dragons weren't supposed to exist here. Not on Viral 9, not in the scrap heaps, not anywhere humans dared to go. And yet, here they were, small, hurt, and entirely dependent on him. He swallowed hard, adrenaline surging. Fear whispered at the back of his mind. These creatures could be dangerous. They were powerful, intelligent, and unpredictable. But Damon's instinct overrode caution. He crouched carefully, speaking softly, voice steady. Easy. I'm not going to hurt you. The dragons flinched, scales clattering against metal debris. Damon's hands trembled as he examined them. One had a deep gash along its flank, smoldering slightly. The other's wing was bent at a cruel angle, torn in several places. His tools were meant for engines, circuits, and hydraulic systems, not living creatures, but he didn't hesitate. He tore strips from his own shirt to staunch bleeding, heated metal clamps to cauterize, and mixed improvised healing salves from scraps of lab chemicals he kept for emergencies. Hours passed in silence except for the hiss of steam and the low, nervous growls of the dragons. Damon worked methodically, each movement calculated. His mind raced, weighing risks and options, balancing urgency against precision. Every mistake could cost a life, or his own. Sweat stung his eyes, but he didn't stop. He whispered encouragement, telling the dragons they would survive, that he wouldn't let them die on his watch. Despite the fear, a strange bond grew between them. They trusted him because he refused to panic. As night fell, the sky above the scrapyard turned a deep, bruised red, the molten clouds reflecting off the metal ruins. Damon finally leaned back on his heels, exhausted, breathing ragged. The dragons curled together in a corner, still wary, still tense, but alive. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. A sound outside made him freeze, a low, rhythmic thump, like wings beating against thick air. The shadows outside shifted. Something massive was circling above the scrapyard. Damon's pulse quickened. Dragons this size were impossible, ancient even, judging by the size of the shadow passing over the metal roofs. These were not children. These were elders, predators and rulers of a world humans had no right to touch. His mind raced. What would they want? Revenge? Justice? Or something worse for meddling in their hatchlings' lives? He glanced at the dragons, their eyes bright in the gloom, tiny sparks of iridescent fire curling from their nostrils. He felt a surge of protectiveness he didn't know he had. He had saved them, and now he had to stand ready for whatever came next. He couldn't run. The scrapyard was open, the wind carried his scent, and the creatures above were faster, stronger, older. The beating of massive wings grew louder, closer. Damon rose, tools clutched in one hand, a makeshift flame stabilizer in the other. His heart hammered in his chest, but beneath the fear was something stronger, determination. He had fixed broken engines, rebuilt what others called lost causes, and he wasn't about to fail these dragons. Not now. Not ever. Then the shadow settled atop the scrapyard walls. A massive silhouette blocked the moonlight, scales glinting in silver and blue, eyes glowing with intelligence that chilled Damon to the bone. The dragons he had saved stirred, hissing defensively, tiny claws scraping against metal floors. Damon took a deep breath, knowing instinctively that his life and theirs depended on what he did next. The moment stretched. The air vibrated with raw power. And then a voice, not human, but resonating in a way that shook his chest, echoed across the scrapyard. You have interfered. Damon froze. He had saved the hatchlings, yes. But now, something far greater than scrap engines had taken notice. The night felt heavier, the shadows longer, and every instinct in him screamed that this was only the beginning. The dragons blinked at him and he met their gaze, determination hardening in his chest. Whatever came, he would not back down. He had chosen to help them, and now the price of that choice was coming. A beat of wings, a flash of scales, and the colossal forms of the elders hovered closer, almost within reach. Damon gritted his teeth, heart pounding, ready to face impossible odds. He had fixed engines, not dragons. But tonight that would change. Damon Core watched the colossal forms settle beyond the scrapyard walls, wings folding like metal sails as they landed with a ground-shaking thud. The air vibrated with heat and power, each breath of the elders sending a tremor across the ground. Damon's hands shook slightly, not from fear but from adrenaline. He had faced dangerous machines before, collapsing starship frames, exploding engines, even rogue security drones, but nothing like this. Nothing that could stare into his soul with eyes older than humanity itself. The eldest dragon stepped forward, scales glinting silver blue in the molten moonlight, and its eyes fixed on Damon with piercing intensity. Its wings, though folded, stretched wider than any ship Damon had ever repaired, and each movement sent sparks flying from the metal around it. "You have interfered," the voice boomed, vibrating like the hum of 1,000 engines. "Two of our young were harmed. Only a human acted when we failed." Damon's throat went dry. I didn't mean to interfere. I fix engines. I didn't know." He stopped, realizing words were useless here. These were beings of power, intelligence, and judgment. Words alone could not explain his actions. He had no choice but to show courage, to stand as he always did in the face of impossible odds. The smaller dragons, now resting behind him, hissed softly but did not move forward. They seemed to understand something Damon did not yet fully grasp. Their lives now hung in the balance of this meeting. Damon's chest tightened. One wrong move, one wrong glance, and everything he had saved could be lost. He glanced at the hatchlings, their eyes bright but wary, and silently promised he would not let them die. The elder tilted its head, wings shifting, sending a gust that rattled metal doors and scattered loose panels. "Curious," it said. "You have healed where we could not. You have used your hands, fragile and untrained, to save what should have been beyond your reach. Humans are unpredictable." Damon swallowed hard. He had never been called anything other than reckless or gifted, but never remarkable in the eyes of beings like this. His mind raced. They were judging him, yes, but more than that, they were testing him. If he failed, it would not be enough to die. He could condemn the hatchlings, perhaps even awaken hostility he could not fight. He needed to prove something: intelligence, courage, morality, all the qualities humans were capable of, though seldom recognized by other species. "I saved them because they couldn't save themselves," Damon said finally, voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "I don't know why, but I couldn't let them die." The elder's gaze softened just slightly, like ice melting under heat. "Humans," it said, almost a whisper, though still carrying weight across the scrapyard. "Your kind acts without calculation, yet achieves what calculation often fails to do. You are different. This is your answer, is it not?" Damon nodded, swallowing again. "Yes, that's my answer." For a moment there was silence. The only sound was the hiss of the hatchlings and the occasional clink of loose metal in the scrapyard. Then, without warning, the elder lifted a clawed foot and pointed toward the horizon, toward the center of Viral 9 where molten rivers cut through jagged rock. "Come," it commanded. "Your skill is required elsewhere. There is a place humans are not meant to enter. You will prove whether your courage is more than instinct, whether your mind can survive where your body cannot." Damon felt his stomach drop. He had no choice. Running was impossible. The elders could crush anything in seconds. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a spark of excitement flickered. Humans had always thrived where others underestimated them. He was about to step into a world that defied all human experience. He glanced at the hatchlings. They stirred as if sensing what was coming. Their eyes locked on him, and for the first time, Damon felt more than responsibility. He felt connection. He had given them life, and now he would lead them into danger, relying on wits, instinct, and courage alone. The elder spread its massive wings, casting long shadows over the scrapyard, a silent warning that the journey ahead would not be simple. Damon took a deep breath, tightening his grip on the tools he had carried for decades. He had fixed impossible machines before, but this was not a machine. Lives, ancient judgment, and a test of human ingenuity waited for him. As the first elder moved forward, Damon followed cautiously, the hatchlings trailing behind him. The wind howled, carrying heat and ash, and the shadows of flying dragons danced across the metal ruins. Every step forward was heavy, every breath tense. The humans who had called Viral 9 a scrap planet had no idea what power slept here, nor the courage it would take to survive. A sudden flare of molten light from the caldera in the distance lit the sky, reflecting in the elder's eyes. Damon felt a thrill of fear and determination at once. He had entered a world where one misstep could mean death. And yet, he had never been more alive, more aware that human skill and courage. His courage was the only thing standing between life and annihilation. The hatchlings moved closer, brushing against his legs. Damon looked down at them and whispered almost to himself, "We'll make it. Somehow we'll make it." But even as he said it, the wind shifted, carrying a new sound. A low, grinding roar, distant yet deep enough to vibrate through his chest. Something stirred deep within the caldera, older and more dangerous than any dragon he had yet faced. Damon's heart jumped. He had saved 2 hatchlings. He had earned the notice of the elders. But he knew instinctively that what awaited him would test everything he thought he was capable of. And in that moment, amid smoke, sparks, and shadow, he realized that human courage was about to be measured against forces beyond imagination. He tightened his grip on his tools and followed the first elder toward the glowing horizon, ready for whatever came next. Whatever that was, he would not falter. The roar came again, louder this time, echoing across the scrapyard. Damon's jaw clenched. The real test was beginning. Damon followed the elder across the scorched scrapyard, the hatchlings clinging close behind him. Each step brought him closer to the heart of Viral 9, where molten rivers cut through black rock and strange magnetic storms twisted the air. The ground shivered under the elder's weight, sending vibrations up Damon's legs. He had worked with unstable engines, yes, but nothing alive had moved like this. Massive, precise, and dangerous, yet full of intelligence. The hatchlings stumbled over loose metal, their small claws scraping sparks from the floor. Damon bent low to steady them, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had saved their lives, but now they were counting on him to survive what came next. A wave of fear washed over him, but he pushed it down. Fear could freeze a human, but courage made them thrive where others fell. The elder spoke, its voice low and resonant. "You will enter DracoWar. Humans are forbidden here. Many have tried, none have survived. You must prove your worth." Damon's heart thudded. DracoWar, the hidden volcanic caldera, a place the dragons themselves called sacred. He knew nothing about it, and yet, his mind immediately raced for solutions. Humans survived by thinking, improvising, and acting faster than danger itself. If he could apply that same skill here, maybe he could turn impossible odds into survival. The path to DracoWar was a maze of jagged rock, molten fissures, and magnetic pulses that made even the metal in his tools vibrate uncontrollably. The elder's wings flared once, sending a gust that knocked Damon off balance. He landed hard, scraping his palms on blackened stone. Pain shot through him, but he pushed onward, picking himself up. The hatchlings whimpered but stayed close. He whispered, "We're almost there. Keep moving." Ahead, a river of molten rock split the path. There was no bridge, no safe route across. Damon's mind clicked instantly. He scanned the debris around him, twisted metal beams, old engine parts, cables left from abandoned human mining drones. He began tying pieces together, constructing a crude, flexible bridge across the molten river. Sweat poured down his face, but he didn't stop, counting every second before the heat reached them. The elder observed silently, its massive eyes glinting with interest. Damon felt its judgment, but he refused to falter. "Almost," he muttered, stretching the final cable into place. The hatchlings hesitated at the edge, wings fluttering nervously. Damon held his hands out to them. "Come on. You can do this. Trust me." One leapt first, claws clinging to metal. The second followed, shivering but determined. Damon crossed last, feeling the heat radiate up through the makeshift bridge. Halfway across, the bridge sagged under his weight. Sparks flew from the cables as the molten rock below hissed. Damon froze for a heartbeat, calculating the load, then shifted his weight slightly, using his body to stabilize the bridge. Inch by inch they made it across. The hatchlings chirped, and Damon allowed himself a brief smile. But relief was fleeting. A sudden tremor shook the ground, a roar echoing from the depths of the caldera. Rocks splintered, molten bursts leaping higher than before. Damon realized the path ahead was far more dangerous. The energy in the ground was rising. This was no ordinary volcanic activity. Something deep within DracoWar had awakened. The elder spread its wings, hovering just above them. "The trial begins," it said. Damon's stomach clenched. Trial. That word meant challenge, danger, and test. He had survived wrecked engines, hostile terrain, and dangerous scavengers, but this was something else entirely. He glanced at the hatchlings. Their tiny, trusting eyes reminded him that fear was not an option. Courage had to come first. Ahead, massive spires of black obsidian rose like jagged teeth. Between them, arcs of molten energy danced unpredictably, forming natural traps. Damon's mind worked faster than ever. He noticed patterns in the energy bursts, the arcs pulsed in sequences. He could time his movements. Using scraps of reflective metal from his pack, he diverted the energy bursts slightly, creating small safe zones. He ran, vaulting across gaps, guiding the hatchlings, adjusting constantly. Every second counted. Every misstep could mean death. One hatchling hesitated near a particularly wide chasm, claws slipping. Damon dove, grabbing it just in time. He felt the tiny body press against him, warm and trembling, and whispered, "I've got you. Don't fight it, just trust me." That small gesture, small as it was, anchored his determination. Humans could survive impossible odds when they acted with heart, not just strength. Hours, or maybe minutes, time felt distorted, passed as Damon guided them deeper. Finally, the air grew hotter, the ground more unstable, but a strange calm settled over the area. The molten rivers and energy arcs became manageable. Damon realized he had learned their patterns, adapting like no human had before. He felt exhaustion clawing at him, but also a surge of pride. Humans were not strong like the dragons, not ancient like the elders, but they could think, improvise, and endure where others could not. Then a deep rumble shook the caldera, louder than anything before. Rocks cracked and molten bursts leapt unexpectedly. Damon's heart leapt into his throat. The trial was far from over. The ground beneath them trembled like it wanted to swallow them whole. The hatchlings chirped nervously, sensing the danger, but they followed him, trusting him completely. Damon's jaw clenched. He had survived the scrapyard, he had saved the hatchlings, and he had crossed impossible molten rivers. But now the real test awaited. Navigating the core of DracoWar, where ancient forces and elder dragons would judge whether humans could survive, not by luck, but by courage, ingenuity, and heart. He took a deep breath, wiped ash from his face, and whispered to the hatchlings, "Stay close. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Behind him, the shadows shifted. The elder's eyes glinted in the molten light. Damon realized that the trial was not just about surviving. It was about proving what humanity could do in the face of impossible odds. And in that moment he understood. He had no choice but to be extraordinary. Damon's eyes scanned the churning heart of DracoWar. Molten rivers twisted like living veins, spitting bursts of fire that made the ground tremble. Jagged obsidian spires jutted skyward, casting sharp shadows across the glowing red and orange of the caldera. Even the air seemed alive, charged with heat and danger. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and everything, himself, the hatchlings, even the fragile balance of this hidden world, would be destroyed. The hatchlings shuffled nervously at his feet, their tiny wings twitching. Damon crouched, brushing a smudge of ash from one's iridescent scales. "Listen to me," he whispered. "We survive together. Watch my movements, follow my lead. Don't panic." Their small heads tilted, eyes locking on his. He could feel their trust, fragile but complete, and it fueled his determination. Humans had survived impossible worlds for centuries because they could think, improvise, and endure. Now every ounce of that skill mattered. A tremor shook the ground. Damon pivoted just in time to see a molten geyser erupt directly ahead, cutting the path forward. Heat scorched his face. He noticed cracks in the ground radiating from the eruption. An instinct told him the earth beneath the geyser could collapse any moment. He had seconds. Damon scanned the debris scattered around him. Broken beams from the abandoned mining drones, cables frayed from static storms, and a half-collapsed landing platform. Using his knowledge of mechanics, he started assembling a makeshift diversion. He anchored a beam across the edge of the geyser and attached frayed cables, creating a weighted lever. With a careful push, molten bursts were redirected toward a safe vent nearby, forming a narrow path across the liquid fire. Damon wiped sweat from his brow and called softly, "Now. Quick, little ones." The hatchlings leapt, one after another, claws gripping the metal and stone as they scrambled across. Damon followed last, the heat licking at his boots, heart hammering as the ground vibrated violently beneath him. Halfway across, another eruption shot molten rock into the air. Damon lunged to shield the nearest hatchling, catching it just as a spike of molten rock splashed near its feet. His shirt scorched, skin blistered, but he didn't stop. Fear burned hot, but his courage burned hotter. He had saved them once. He would do it again. The elders watched silently from above, wings folded, eyes glinting with judgment and curiosity. Damon knew they were testing him, not just for courage but for ingenuity. Humans could survive situations where strength alone failed. Thinking, improvising, adapting, this was their edge. He adjusted his makeshift bridge, recalculated the path across unstable spires, and moved forward with careful precision. A sudden quake threw him off balance. One of the hatchlings shrieked, teetering near the edge of a molten fissure. Damon dove, catching it midair, feeling its tiny body press against him. "Got you," he muttered, chest heaving. The hatchling's warmth, fragile and trusting, reminded him why he was risking everything. Humans survived because they cared. Because they acted when others would hesitate. Ahead, a massive rock wall blocked their path, jagged and unstable. Damon's mind raced. He noticed a narrow crevice at the base, partially obscured by molten smoke. It was too small for him but just enough for the hatchlings. He began dismantling a collapsed drone, cutting pieces to create a ramp and lever system. Sparks flew as he worked, sweat stinging his eyes. With careful pushes and weighted adjustments, he created a temporary bridge that allowed the hatchlings to pass safely. Damon tested it last, each movement calculated. The bridge wobbled dangerously, but his hands were steady. Inch by inch, he crossed, feeling the heat rise, the ground shudder beneath him. A roar echoed from deep within the caldera, shaking dust from the spires. Damon froze. The sound was not just power, it was intelligence, intent. Something ancient, dangerous, and aware of his presence. The hatchlings huddled near him, trembling but unharmed. Damon's chest heaved. Every step forward had been life or death, but they had survived. He realized that human courage wasn't just about facing danger, it was about acting despite fear, improvising when no solution seemed possible, and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The final stretch to the heart of DracoWar was before them. Rivers of molten rock crisscrossed the path, shifting unpredictably. Damon studied the flow, noticing rhythm in the eruptions. Bursts followed intervals. Timing was everything. Using scraps of metal and cables, he rigged a sequence of small deflectors to divert molten bursts, creating temporary safe zones. He led the hatchlings across, moving faster than the fire, calculating every step with precision. Suddenly the ground cracked beneath Damon, a geyser of molten rock erupting inches from his boots. He leapt, rolling, clutching a hatchling to his chest midair. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he didn't cry out. Humans survived impossible odds because they endured pain, because they adapted, because they refused to give up when the world demanded more than they thought possible. Finally they reached a plateau overlooking the central caldera. The molten rivers churned below, arcs of raw energy dancing across the surface. Damon dropped to his knees, gasping, his clothes scorched and ash-covered. The hatchlings nestled against him, breathing in shallow, quick bursts. He felt the heat on his skin, the roar of power beneath him, and the judgment of the elders above. Damon realized something profound. He had entered a place no human was meant to survive. Yet, through courage, intelligence, and sheer determination, he had guided the hatchlings across terrain that would have killed any other human instantly. The elders had not interfered, not because they could not, but because they were testing him, measuring what a human was capable of under pressure. A low vibration ran through the plateau. Damon's eyes widened as molten spires shifted, revealing a hidden passage deeper into DracoWar. The hatchlings chirped softly as if sensing the next trial. Damon looked at them, chest tightening with resolve. Whatever awaited, they would face it together. Humans were small, fragile, and yet they endured where giants faltered. And in that moment, Damon knew the next challenge would demand everything he had. His courage, his mind, and his heart. He stood, tools clutched in one hand, hatchlings close at his side, and stepped toward the hidden passage. The trial of DracoWar had only just begun. Damon's breath came in ragged bursts as he stepped onto the hidden plateau. Below him, molten rivers twisted like veins of fire, their heat radiating upward in waves. The elders hovered above, wings folded but eyes sharp, watching his every move. This was the final challenge, the heart of DracoWar where no human had survived. He could feel it, the pressure, the judgment, and the impossible odds waiting to crush him. The hatchlings pressed close to him, their warmth a fragile reminder of what he had already fought to protect. Damon's hands clenched around his tools. These were not machines now. This was life, energy, and intelligence combined in a place no human had any right to touch. And yet he had survived this far. Humans thrived where others faltered because they could think, adapt, and act where instinct alone failed. Ahead, a massive spire of obsidian split the plateau, molten cracks running along its jagged surface. From its base, arcs of fire shot upward unpredictably, creating a barrier that seemed impossible to cross. Damon's eyes scanned the terrain, heart pounding. There had to be a way. There always was. Humans survived the impossible because they refused to accept defeat. He noticed a pattern in the fire bursts, slight, almost imperceptible rhythms in the arcs. Using scraps of metal, frayed cables, and the remains of broken drones, Damon began constructing a sequence of deflectors. Sparks flew as he hammered, twisted, and reinforced, sweat stinging his eyes. Every adjustment mattered. One miscalculation, one burst of molten energy hitting the wrong angle, and it would be over. The hatchlings chirped nervously behind him. Damon crouched low, speaking softly. "Watch carefully. Learn. Timing is everything." He ran through a mental map of the arcs, adjusting deflectors in real time as the fire shifted and roared. His mind moved faster than the danger itself, calculating angles, weight distribution, and energy flow with the precision of a human born to survive impossible odds. Finally, the path was clear, just enough for him and the hatchlings to cross. Damon took a deep breath, gauging the first fire burst. He sprinted, leaping over molten cracks, his boots sizzling where they landed. A hatchling tripped, claws slipping near a pool of lava. Damon dove, catching it midair, skin blistering from the heat, but heart steady. He whispered, "I've got you. Keep going." Step by step, leap by leap, they made it across. The final stretch was a narrow ledge above the deepest lava river, trembling as the caldera rumbled beneath them. Damon balanced, tools in one hand, the hatchlings pressed against his side. Below, the molten current churned violently. One wrong move and it would be the end. He moved with calm precision, muscles burning, mind focused, every instinct honed for survival. As they reached the other side, a roar shook the plateau. Damon turned, heart leaping. From the molten depths, a massive creature emerged. Not a hatchling, not an elder, but something older and far larger. Its scales glimmered with molten veins, eyes glowing with ancient intelligence. The elder's eyes widened above, impressed. Damon froze for a heartbeat, then made his decision. Humans survived by daring, by acting when hesitation would kill them. He stepped forward, tools held out, heart racing, and shouted to the creature. "I don't want to fight. I'm here to protect them, to survive, and to prove that humans can endure where giants fail." The molten creature paused, observing him. Damon's mind raced. He needed more than courage. He needed strategy. Using reflective panels from his pack, he caught flashes of molten light, redirecting them to dazzle the creature without harm. It roared in frustration but did not strike. He moved closer, timing every step with precision, guiding the hatchlings behind him. Minutes stretched like hours. Damon's sweat and ash mixed, skin scorched, lungs burning, but he refused to falter. The creature tested him, probing with bursts of molten energy, but Damon's quick thinking, human ingenuity, and careful planning allowed him to survive every strike. The hatchlings followed, trembling but safe, trusting him completely. Finally, the creature withdrew, sinking back into the molten river with a final rumble. Damon sank to his knees, chest heaving but eyes bright. He had survived. Not by strength, not by fire, not by luck, but by human courage, intelligence, and relentless determination. The hatchlings nestled against him, chirping softly. The elders descended slowly, massive wings folding as they landed around him. Their eyes glimmered with respect. "You have passed the trial," the eldest said, voice echoing like thunder softened by awe. "Few humans could have endured this. You have proven what your kind is capable of: courage beyond instinct, skill beyond expectation, and heart beyond measure." Damon looked at the hatchlings, then at the molten caldera around them. "I only did what I had to," he said quietly. "I couldn't let them die." The elders inclined their massive heads. "Your actions have not only saved lives," the eldest continued, "but bridged the worlds of human and dragon. You have earned a place among the guardians of DracoWar. Know this, your kind is fragile, yes, but your minds, courage, and hearts can match the oldest powers in existence." Damon exhaled, exhaustion and relief flooding through him. He had entered a place humans were never meant to touch, faced challenges that could have ended him at every step, and survived. He had proven, not just to the dragons but to himself, what humanity could achieve against impossible odds. The hatchlings chirped, brushing against his legs, and Damon smiled for the first time in hours. They were alive. He was alive. And humans had earned respect where strength alone had failed. As the molten rivers calmed and the caldera glowed with molten light, Damon understood one truth clearly: humans were small and fragile, yes, but no force in the universe could outmatch human courage, ingenuity, and determination when the stakes were life itself. And with that realization he looked toward the horizon, ready for whatever challenges the universe would dare throw at him next.